Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, Muslim comedian OG, and the host of the Shout Out Show. Hope that you're having an excellent day. Listen, we have a special show today. I think it's very important that we highlight some of our artists and some of our kindred spirits who are out there in the art field and out there in the spiritual realm. This brother, I got to reunite with him in Austin at the show, Capital City Comedy Club, and he just came out and was just a beautiful brother. You can tell people have a very robust spirit, and he let me know that he was doing a book of poetry. Not a book about himself, but really. And I've read some of the pieces. I haven't read it all. I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't read it all, but a lot of stuff that I read, liked, and particularly for the times that we're going through, I found the readings number one very informative about our own human spirit, our own human condition, but also the redemptive nature of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I thought it was fantastic. The name of the book is An Open Heart by my brother Abbas Muhammad, out of Austin. Used to be in the Bay. One of my favorite food critics too. Growing a lot of mushrooms in his house, so keep pay attention. But I think even though I'm a comedian, these things people don't know. We look for refinement in our art, and I think that this brother has put his finger on this refinement. An open heart is really a treatise about life. Some of the things about grievance, about renewal, and being wantingly, seeking a closer presence, more proximity with the Most High. It's something that we really need to talk about. And this is a book really for the heart, the open heart. He's going to tell you about that. That's not going to be me, but the whole understanding of the Kaub and the functionality. The heart is not just in the chest. The heart is in the community. The heart is in our actions. The heart is in our intentions. And today he's going to be on the show. He's graced us. Now, the book is going to be released probably before this show comes out, but we're going to have all that information. But most importantly, I wanted to have him here to talk to you. I think it's important that we support our artists. I can tell you how many people have supported me. Well, actually, it's been so many people that have supported me through my career. I thought it was important to support him. I am only doing what I think you would have done when you heard about this book and the potential and the talent and the commitment. This brother really has it going. He really has it going on in the context of he's not waiting for people to validate his art. And that's what I love. So listen, sit back, don't go anywhere. We're going to get the show started. This Preacher Moss on the Shout Out Show. We got author Abbas Muhammad talking about his book, An Open Heart. Hey, we're back. I tried to do the Hollywood exclusive thing. I want you guys to see this cover real quick. An Open Heart. I feel like I got to move this way, but I just want you to see just the art behind it right here. Like this is actually art that he commissioned to be done. So it's like a vase, but it's a vase in the form of a heart. I tell you, this joint is top flight, so I'm enjoying myself. So rather than hear me talk about an open heart, let's get the guy who came in and said, I want to share this art with the world. Please welcome, brothers and sisters, our brother and yours, Abbas. Brother Abbas
Assalamu
Muhammad.
alaikum.
Wa
Assalamu
alaikum
alaikum
assalam
warahmatullah.
wa barakatuh, beloved. Ramadan Mubarak, man, and welcome to the Shout Out Show. You
Thank
are
you. Thank
Shout Out
you.
Show family.
Yeah, I've been a listener and I've definitely tuned in, and so it's quite an honor and a pleasure to be invited here by you. It's quite an honor.
Listen, this is about you, brother. This is about your art. This is about your vision. Where did this idea for the open heart come about? We talk about poems. My little one writes poetry. She's had her poetry selected as a high school in a couple contests. My poets extraordinaire, people like Amir Suleiman, We're all boys, But when I read your book, I said, man, this is a very weighty, loving book, man.
Alhamdulillah. That's that's really kind. And I, immediately right off the bat, you mentioned Amir Suleiman, and he is definitely a part of my journey and my poetic journey. I started writing when I was in high school. And when I was in grad school, I would do performance, slam poetry performance a lot. At one point, I was on a team representing UC Davis at a national stage competition, doing spoken word performances. And after that, I kind of took a break. I've really been focusing on supporting other artists and supporting other projects, through the various platforms that I've been building. But this is something different. This is something special. It's something very personal. It's something very vulnerable, and it's like having my heart living out there in the world. And so I remember there was one evening, Amir Suleiman was doing a show called Love, the Lover, and the Beloved, in Oakland, and I went to watch this. And the things that he can do with the English language, I'd never seen anyone do before. And I thought, I thought to myself, like, this is poetry that is at the same time Islamic poetry, but it's also personal poetry. And this is not a translation. Up until then, the only English poetry I'd heard in this vein had been translations of Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, Turkish, beautiful languages. But there wasn't a lot in the English language. So that night, when I went home, I wrote, and immediately I could tell that the flavor of my writing has completely changed from that point on. And so that poem is also in the book. And I want to mention also just about the title, An Opened Heart. There's a line from one of Amir's poems. He says, "Who would want their heart broken? But
Yeah,
now that mine has been split open, I wonder who would want their heart closed ever."
I read that, and what's the feeling, man, when you have a poem that's just bursting to be revealed? Like comedians go, "Oh, this bit's going to be crazy." When you're an artist, you go, "Oh, this poem is going to be bonkers," because it seems like with poetry, because the flow is so limitless that you see your words in all kind of different arenas. We think about comedy clubs and shows. You're talking about words that softly and mercifully pierce the heart. I always joke with Amir. I'm like, "Have you ever written a happy poem?" And we laughed about it. I'm like, only because I understand what you're really, really talking about. What's the process for an Abbas Muhammad to come up with An Open Heart? What was the first poem that you worked on?
The first poem, I want to say I wrote this as a teenager. It's about the Ahlul Bayt, and that's something that's really personal to my Islam, my faith, my connection to Islam as a Shia Muslim. And I don't know a lot of Shias that are in this field with published work, so it really means a lot to have that. And this was something that I had written when I was about 15 or 16 years old, and I shared it with the masjid community. And everything beyond that, I would say, really everything was kind of written from that moment, that I had seen and witnessed what Amir Suleiman had written and performed. And from that moment on, the poetry has really taken on more of a spiritual, more of a mystic reflection on my relationship to Allah, my relationship to His creation, and my relationship to myself. It's those three layers been explored. And it's interesting because, an opened heart is really another way of saying a broken heart. And like you said, it's like, man, do you write any fun, lighthearted poetry? A lot of times it's directly coming from that broken heart. It's coming from that broken part. That crack is where that light shines through, as Rumi says.
Well, let me ask you this. That being is, I personally don't think I really write happy comedy. Let's just say what it is. I don't really write happy comedy. Everybody knows that. It's the irony that pushes through. When you're writing these poems, it's not so. What is it that's pushing through? It's not necessarily irony, but there's a certain tone of intimacy. Like I talked to a person who's I talked to a person who's a poet, and they talked about that intimacy of pain and revealing. You have a You have a poem. I think it's now. This is where you get old. It's under your grievance section. It's
Right.
it's like a waiting. No, it's not waiting. And I'm sorry, brother. I know exactly what it was because I read this joint. Okay, forget it. It's
I think also just like to your point, sometimes I will it's kind of like a spring kind of winds up. The spring winds up and it winds up and it winds up and the spring is sitting there. It can be sitting there wound up. Um and sometimes I'm sitting there and these words or these lines, it might just be one line that just keeps repeating in my head. And there's no way to make it go away. I could try and sleep. I could try, it's the only two things I could do at that point is I could write that line, or if the pen and paper or my phone is too far away, I can try and convince myself it wasn't that deep. But there are moments where the poem comes through and I write the whole entire thing, and afterwards I'm looking at it and I myself am surprised because it feels like that poem did not come from me. It came from another place. It came through me, but it came from another place. So a lot of that poetry writing is witnessing.
Well, let me ask you this: the name of the poem under the return section. So I did have return right. It's called "The Day of Knowing." Can you talk about the day of knowing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll recite it as well, but I'll share a little bit of context. This is again one of those poems that, like I just mentioned, the whole thing kind of came out at once. And after the whole thing kind of came out, it's one of those few poems that I haven't edited at all. And this poem came through me. So I was on the Hajj. I've been on Hajj once, and I pray that Allah invites me again to go on Hajj. It's an amazing experience. And this was in 2019. So this is before a pandemic came and shut Hajj down and everything kind of changed. And it was the day of Arafah, Yom Arafah, which is really the peak of the most spiritual moment of this most spiritual experience of my life. And, there's a hadith that says that no one on the Hajj, when the sun sets, there's no one whose sins are not completely forgiven. In fact, it takes a lot of hubris and pride to think that the day has set on the day of Arafat Hajj and you still have sins that were not forgiven. Mm-hmm. So this was really moving. This was really touching. And I'd love to share this poem right now. I have it here.
Please do.
In Tent City. The name is called the day of knowing, Yom Arafat. In Tent City, the intensity of the sun setting eclipses every sun sitting. The sun burned sins like Adam's son, Abraham's ropes burned and singed as he was in the fire sitting. And when the sun sets in this tent city, all are born anew, watching the sun setting. Meanwhile, she's in her tent sitting, intensely supplicating. She gains insights, turns on her inner sights, worlds focused on the outer, but she has an inner sights. A winner in the real life, a winner to the true in life, winning through every strife. When the pain it clarifies, she's blessed, bestowed with inner sight. And this is, when I say she, in this context of this poem, I'm talking about the soul, the nafs.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other poem that I really liked was True and Living. And I'm going to tell you why I like True and Living. Mm-hmm. It was those words that really helped guide me to Islam. Can you recite True and Living, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is from the chapter called Grievance. So there's 3 chapters in the book that kind of describe the journey of these 3 different movements of the heart. The first chapter is called Praise. Mm-hmm. That is all about life is good, life is great. I love God. I love everything. Thank you, Allah. That is a lot of praise and a lot of joy at the beauty, the Jamal. And the second chapter is called Grievance or Shikwa. where it's like, oh, wow, it just got real. And now I'm still talking to God, but I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm confused. I'm frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third chapter, Toba, is called the return. That's kind of where you return and you've come to acceptance that all of this is God. All of this is a spiritual journey. This is all part of it. And I have to accept all of it in its completeness. So this poem, True and Living, I wrote from a real dark point in my life. And I thought that it wouldn't be accurate to put this book forth without showing every aspect of the journey.
We love to hear it.
Meditate to change your state so the evil thoughts can't reach you. Seek the leaves, the streams, and trees, and let Mother Nature teach you. I pray to the true and loving God for peace. It's odd, I rest and sleep, but I can't find my ease. In the darkness, walls closing in, mark my speech. Freedom isn't feasible if freedom ain't decreed. I close my eyes and open them, no difference in what I see. The darkness is eternal, or at least that's how it seems. But I know it's all internal. See, this darkness comes from me. So many voices screeching, fire and flames and hell's fury. It's far-fetched to imagine that somehow there is hope for me. The alternative to hoping, though, is simply choosing to cease to be. So I seize the pen instead and write and pray that the voices cease. For my family, for the tribe that holds me down and prays for me, I pray for peace when I want to peace out. Is there no escape for me? Is there no escape from me? And if I tried to die at my own hands, wouldn't that be called blasphemy? I'm getting real tired of me, but I haven't yet figured out a way out of me. Sure, some flickers here and there of God may release some doubts for me, and from those moments chosen reminders to be open to God's mercy. Meditate to change your state so the evil thoughts can't reach you. Seek the leaves, the streams and trees, and let Mother Nature teach you. See, I know that things are tough right now, and I know I'm not alone. I know that I complain a lot, like, damn, God, throw your dog a bone and it's on and I'm gone. My phone is thrown. I'm not here for long, but this is my home. This meat, my bones, the ship has flown, the lifeboat I'm rowing, blessings I am counting. Dear God, I am all in. This mountain I'm climbing, it's tough though, sweat shining. Forgive me for whining, keep my head on the grind and just focus on climbing. My own self I'm seeking, truthhood I'm seeking, real life I am seeking, I am seeking, I am seeking, but until then I am seething, impatient, I am freaking out, this loneliness I am feeling out, a life of love I'm dreaming about. I'm seeking God, I want to shout, I'm seeking God, I want to shout, I'm seeking God, but I'm seething, God, this feeling, God, please make it easy. God, I got no one left, but you know what's best. So here I am now again. If taking it all in and letting me fall is your way of showing me where I stand, I'll take it humbly. Even though I'm crumbling, I've shown up here yet again, but I need your strength and wisdom if I'm to make it out as a man. I've just been faking, talking sweet, taking convenient stands on matters near and dear, but fear has lately got me on the run, got me enslaved to cravings. From every pain I start to run. A misguided marathon. I'm ultimately running to the one. So I'm sorry if I can't go on. The air is burning in my lungs, and somewhere on the way, I guess, I forgot to have some fun, because I'm a flawed man. But who here isn't flawed, man? Who here has got the master plan? I'm still wondering about the master's plan. That's why I meditate to change my state so the evil thoughts can't reach me. I seek the leaves, the streams and trees, and let Mother Nature teach me. Let Mother Nature reach me, and let Mother Nature heal me.
So when you read that, brother, what are you feeling? What does that call you back to?
Man, it takes me right back to the moment, and I'm getting emotional even just thinking about it. I look back at that moment where I felt that I had truly lost everything, and I couldn't understand why.
Mm.
There were a lot of different difficult things that are happening in my life, and I felt confused. I didn't know, did I deserve this? Did something happen? Did I do something? What is it? What is the cause of this? And I look back at it now, and what I think about is the fact that even in the darkest moment, when I'm having a conversation with God and I'm seething, I'm angry, and I'm frustrated, I'm still having a conversation with him. That even in the moment where I felt that there was no hope in the darkness, I was still having a conversation with him. Even when there was pain and hurt and anger, it was still a conversation. So I look back at that, and I'm glad that I was able to keep that part of it intact.
I think what's interesting is when we find ourselves in those moments, um, we can be everything you said, upset, seething, out of pocket, but it's really hard to bring that to a conversation with Allah.
Yeah.
It's really hard to you can't bring that energy. I've tried at times. By the time you get, it's hard to pray when you're just out of pocket mad. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
almost like why even make salat? Because it's a look, it's a garbage salat. I'm not even focused. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm in this space. But I think I think that the quiet narrative in what you talked about is even as flawed as we are, we haven't forgotten where we go to when we're flawed. We haven't forgotten where we go to when we're angry. We haven't forgotten
Yeah.
where we go to when we feel forgotten. You know, and I think that's a beautiful space when you're trying to be. Listen, I love the poem. Those are my two favorite ones, of course. True and Living used to come from the old late not Nation of Islam, but 5% Nation used to say True and Living God.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, this let me check this one out, right? But let
Yeah,
me
yeah, that's a thread that's weaving through a lot of different art forms in the last few decades, and I found that to be really fitting also because I think about when you think about Allah in the context of the true and living, the two names that come to mind of Allah is Al-Haq and Al-Hayy,
yeah.
the true and the living.
I think the thing that's beautiful is, you find it in the street. You're 16, 17-year-old kid, nowhere near Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hit true and living, man, just the juxtaposition of those words, man. It's like, yo, what is that about?
Yeah.
It's like not like beans and cornbread, peanut butter and jelly. True and living.
You gotta have one with the other. I have a true and living sandwich.
I know, man. I know. So, what's the plan for the book, man? Give us a little bit of the overview of the rollout.
Absolutely. So today, on the day that we're having this conversation, we're approaching the halfway point of Ramadan, and I decided really to align the rollout of this book with Ramadan. Of course, it has a lot of spiritual weight, it has a lot of spiritual significance, and I plan to publish the book to the world on Eid. And every Eid you get dressed up and you got little presents for the kids, and you're sharing presents with each other. So I wanted to share this thing that I've been working on for a long time now, that just been grinding and working on for a long time. I wanted to share this with the world on a day of Eid, on a day of festivity, on a day of festival. And so the plan for the rollout essentially is I'm starting a fundraising at this point, halfway point of Ramadan. During the last 2 weeks of Ramadan, I'm raising funds to cover all of the costs so that I could make sure that I, fully pay the artist who designed the amazing cover that you had showed. And I can fully pay the formatting artist, and as much as I can to also be able to support organizations that want to be able to share this or may not have the funds or the ability to do so. And really, I mean, I see this as a contribution from me, from my voice to the community, to the world. But if I even set all that aside and I imagine me at 15, 16, I'm writing this for him. I'm publishing this for him. And so if there's anyone out there that, experiencing or going through similar experiences that I was when I was 15, then I hope this book brings them the kind of peace.
Inshallah. So, before we off air, you mentioned that you had something on Launch Good. Could you talk about that?
Absolutely. So launchgood.com/unopened heart is the landing page for the campaign. So I'm going to publish on Eid, but you can pre-order through the Launch Good. I'm going to have a lot of different tiers available. If you want just a copy of the book, signed copy of the book, or some merchandise, I'm working on some merch with the amazing cover design on there. So definitely check out the Launch Good campaign. I'm raising funds through to the end of Ramadan, up until Eid, after which point the publishing is going to be open to the world. I really would appreciate your support, even if it's just pre-ordering the book. It shows me that folks are picking up what I'm putting down. It shows me that this work is being received and validated. And of course, anything that you put forth during the month of Ramadan, based on your niyyah, based on your intention, your sincerity, may Allah accept that with bounty and reward you for that with bounty. And so as I work through this and as I fundraise through this for this holy month, I pray that Allah accepts my intention with this book, which is to share my authentic experience and to hopefully bring some peace and some ease. I know a lot of times when you're experiencing a lot of emotions and don't have words to express it, sometimes you see a piece of art that just unlocks it. And so this is genuinely from my heart to yours, and I hope it brings peace and ease to folks.
Inshallah, man, Allah give you success. One of your hardest artists is people that love you the most. Your family, your friends, your sisters, your brothers. What has been a reaction to with family and friends? Take us through that, because sometimes when you go through a process, people may or may not know this as artists. When we go through a process as artists, our families go through that process too.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I've been writing these poems. I gotta say, my first draft of this book was probably eight or 9 years ago. So people that are close to me have heard me talking about I'm writing a book for the last decade or so. So at a certain point, I'm sure it's just sort of like, okay, so when is this book going to come out? So it's really been a long time coming. But I want to give a special shout out to my sister. My sister went on to be a writer. She's a novelist. She's completed 3 novels, mashallah. She founded the Muslim Literary Festival in Toronto last year. So I'm going to be visiting the Muslim Literary Festival in the summer of this year.
Shout out
to sis Nergis. I'm really proud of you. And I'm glad that you were able to guide me into mentors. This is my younger sister, but she was really helping me a lot through this process. And I really appreciate my sister a lot. Special shout out.
Hey man, it's amazing. Listen, brother, we're very proud of you. The shout out family is behind you, and everybody on Instagram, Facebook Live, Twitter. Please support this very humble and noble project, which is called An Open Heart by our dear brother Abbas Muhammad. We want to make sure that you are receiving the best of the arts community. I think that this brother has something to offer. I would suggest that you not walk to Launch Good, but run and order your copies, pre-order your copies, and pre-order your copies for other people. So listen, we have 1 minute left. Is there anything you would like to say before we get out of here? The floor is yours.
I just want to say that ultimately, if your mother is alive, just remember that your mother's prayers are what brings you success. If your mother has passed on, just know that praying for her also elevates your level of success. Ultimately, everything that I've ever done and I've ever become is because of the prayers of my mother. So I'd like to end with that, because Allah put such a high status of your mother in Islam, and I can't think of a better way of ending than that note.
Why don't you close us out with dua? Make sure you put something in there for mom.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I have one of these poems that I've written is a dua here. I can go ahead and pull that up. It's called Prayer for Return.
Okay.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In darkness, I seek you, giver of light. I beseech you, giver of life. I wish to see you, giver of sight. In life, I breathe you, freshest of air, walk beneath you, my highest affair. I need you for worries and cares. In death, I see you, O beloved, my heart outstretched, it glows, ignited. Ya Allah, O beloved, may Allah bring success to Muslim artists that are doing the thing. May Allah bring sincerity to the intention. May Allah lengthen and strengthen the life of my mother and everyone's mother out there, and the family and friends. And may Allah make sure that there's all sorts of barakah in Preacher Moss and every project that he touches as well. Jazakallah for having me on here. I'm really, really pleased and honored.
Much love, man. Continue success with your book. Anything we can do here in the Shout Out Show family, man, you got it, man. We appreciate
it. Appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Kareem. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Everybody, that's our show for today. Thanks again to Brother Abbas Muhammad sharing his book, his poetry, his art, and open heart. We'll see you next week.